As we very recently established, Chud the Builder likes to get pegged. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with that. I personally think that is so #valid. I don't judge Chud the Builder for getting pegged by Black women. I think that is something that everyone needs to do at least once in their life. I've seen time and time again that for white supremacists, sometimes the thing that they want more than anything is a BBC in their ASS. But of course, we're not here to kink shame. That wouldn't be very hot and introspective. Instead, we're here to update this conversation by watching a transgender woman who actually did come out and share that she also had a relationship with Chud the Builder. Now, if you'll remember in my video, I said that not every man that likes to get pegged likes transgender women, but it seems like that may have been the case for this particular pass-around party bottom. So I thought that I would work on some art as per usual, and we would watch the video together. I've been loving the fact that a lot of you guys have been telling me that you enjoy making art while I make art, and if you guys ever do that, please tag me in it. I would love to see it. Also, I happen to be wearing some vintage katblaque merch. I've been toying with the idea of bringing some of my old designs back. Maybe we'll do that. Let me know if you're interested in that. Anyway, let's get into it, and if you like content like this, don't forget to subscribe. I'm at over 500,000 subscribers right now, and I would love to make it to 1 million.
Last year, May 2025, I Chud the Builder. I've been seeing other girls and twinks and girl twinks talking about their experiences with Chud the Builder. And I feel like I need to talk about mine too, because I might have started it. I met him on Grindr. Apparently we all love this dude. Before I take too much heat, he only mentioned that Nick Fuentes was a friend of his after our hookup. He knew he couldn't lead with the racism if he wanted to bag a drink. I'm not sure if he was a streamer yet. He told me I was his first. Looking back after what we know now, he might have been telling me what I wanted to hear. Chasers will do that. They will flatter your insecurities until they get you into bed, then pick at them to make you stay. Guys like that see how low the bar is for T-girls and what reason do they have to raise it. I get it. One time I got so used to the DL treatment that I thought I loved a man just for door dashing at Taco Bell. But that's a different story. R.I.P. Jason. I need to explain my side of the story, where I was in life that caused me to ignore his red flags. I always hated being a gay dude because I never wanted to date gay guys. I was finally pulling masculine trade. They were my type, and I was trying not to get an ego about it. While I was flattered that they were hot, I was finding out the hard way that most guys will never be seen with me in public. Being trans is humiliating in that way. It's just like self-image roller coaster. Men will say, I want to marry you, just to cancel the first date and say, come over, I'm already in bed. I know they're just saying shit, but it's like, if I'm so hot, why can't you be seen with me? I know why.
To quickly summarize, she met Chud the Builder on Grindr. She was fresh out of a relationship, one of the very first relationships she was ever in, as she describes, a fully estrogenized transgender woman. At the time, she recognized that a lot of the men that approached her were distinctly different from the gay men that she was dealing with before, gay men that she never really wanted to deal with. She was, in this phase of her life, enjoying the attention she got specifically from a very particular type of presumably heterosexual man. I think that is pretty central to this story because I personally have observed a lot of the conservative men that like trans women, that fetishize Black women and Black men, are into the playing of roles. A lot of them are into this very distinct idea that certain types of people should only perform certain types of activities. A lot of their interest in trans women comes from the fact that a lot of trans women, as she's describing in this video, are gaining validation from their relationships with straight men. And for a lot of straight men, they're never going to be in a situation where they experience that level of commitment from a woman, right? There are a lot of women who view being with a man as validating, but it's a whole other level when you're dealing with someone who is ostracized within society for their gender, especially someone who may be hungry for that type of attention.
I'm in my early 30s now. It's embarrassing to learn lessons that most people figure out at 16, that men will say anything to sleep with you. You think I'd have learned it. You think I would know this going into it, but then you get treated so bad in public that you forget anyone saying anything good. You're like, oh my God, thank you. Oh my God. On top of that, you have to navigate being at the target of a culture war. It's better now. It gets better. I did just go outside and the fucking cashier was a fucking at the quesadilla place. I'm used to being greeted with fear and disgust. Just to have someone's husband wink at me when no one's watching. When I started going out with Miles, the difference was very clear.
I felt like pointing that out, that bar that she just laid down, because she says she's used to going out in public and being disrespected and having people's husbands wink at her, right? That is such a common trans experience. It's part of why these conversations are so hard to have, because trans women, we see this side of society that isn't privy to most people. Most people are never really able to truly see what transgender women see. What we see is that we exist in a culture that says that we are undesirable while experiencing hyper desire, because we are so rare. There are people who get excited about interacting with us, but they're aware that society may judge them, which is why they often don't want to go out and claim them. It's why they don't want to interact with the reality that they are attracted to transgender women and say that out loud. It is a common problem that a lot of transgender women have to navigate around. And as she says, that's something that a lot of people there's aspects of this that you would figure out when you're a lot younger.
So much of my life revolved around a man who was proud to be seen with me that I underestimated the amount of shame I was going to be subjected to in dating. I started to rack up bad experiences. By early May, the excitement of dating was wearing off. I had met one good man in a sea of chasers. So I met Chud the Builder a month after my ex passed, when I was LARPing as fine and continuing my tranny hoe phase. Chud showed up looking buff, beautiful, with his chaser trait and mustache. It flattered me. It's kind of sad that he was the only man in my DMs talking like a normal person. I don't know what dating apps do to people's social skills. It's not just a Grindr thing. Chud was funny. We talked about Pokemon and being losers. He talked a lot about being autistic, which caught me off guard. One of the sweetest things he said to me was about his fitness. He said, I'm kind of like you. I changed myself into the person I wanted to be. And the empathy in that from a chaser really floored me. I'm used to hearing a defense of trans people in a more middling way. Like, they don't understand it, but they can tolerate it. Chud's analogy to fitness was positive and non-judgmental. It's closer to how I actually feel about being trans. When he hit me up, I asked if he bottomed. He said,
I'm a top. I've never bottomed. I don't want to bottom. Like, I don't do any of that gay shit.
And I don't know if it was my fault, because back then I was like, I don't like bottoms. And I mean, bottom chasers are a thing. Girl, I'm 6'2". Like, I feel like it was just me. Like, I'm so HSTS, bitch. Like, oh my God. Like, I'm only a bottom. Girl, you don't even know how to bottom. Not true. But yeah, I've topped some dudes. Now that we know we got pegged, it's like, it was either cope or it was a lie. I feel like it was a lie, because I feel like that's why he was looking for a train. But
now this is such interesting context, because this is something that really tracks with my experiences with men. Something that happens a lot of times is men are very aware that there are certain transgender women who do not like to top, right? Especially when they're chasers, right? Like, chasers often will become very aware of all of the little things that transgender women like and do not like. And they want to say the right thing so they can get what they want from them, right? I had an ex that was very similar to this, where one of the very first conversations I had with him was about how I don't top. I can't physically do it. I don't want to do it. It's not something I personally desire. I think at the time I met him, I would definitely say that I was more judgmental towards men who bottomed, right? So he said that it wasn't something that he was into. I would find out after the fact that he very much was into bottoming, but he recognized that I did not want to top and was not interested in topping. And so men often will do this thing where they will change themselves to get what they want. And they'll even go as far as saying stuff like that. One thing that we talked about in the video that I did is that Chud the Builder is himself a cross-dresser. And what I've observed, this is something that I experienced. I've told this story a few different times, but when I was in college, I had a somewhat similar experience where I started talking to this guy. He was your prototypical chaser. Chud the Builder mentioned that he has a chaser mustache. Yeah, he does. Chud the Builder comes off like a chaser to me in terms of the way that he presents himself, right? To me, the tell of a guy who's a chaser is this almost cartoonish investment in male gender performance, this sort of character, almost like they're doing man drag. It's hard to explain, but it's a particular essence, and Chud does have it. She talks about how one of the reasons he was appealing to her is that he was this hyper masculine guy. With him understanding that's why she's interested, he's going to be like, I don't do that gay shit, right? Even though he's a cross-dresser who gets pegged by Black women, right? Which none of that makes him gay. But of course, he understands that in our culture, people are going to see it that way. And that trans women, especially trans women like this, who are very, I mean, she even sort of references that heterosexual and very much on the, heterosexual, transsexual sort of kick, they're going to recognize that that's something that they're not going to be okay with. But a lot of times these men do want to bottom, right? They want to bottom. I make it a point of saying that I don't judge men who want to bottom, so that if they are into bottoming, they can express that they want to do that. Because at this point, I don't feel that way. At this point, I don't judge men for wanting to bottom. But there was certainly a time where I did. Anyway, let's get back into it.
There was a point in our hookup when my hands got too close to his ass and he moved them away. So I'm like, if you wanted to bottom, why not let me finger in it? But I asked if he reciprocated, and he said, I mean, I love going down on girls, so I don't see why not. Okay, that's hot. He hit all my green flags, at least at the time, where he treated me like a normal girl, agreed to be seen with me in public, wasn't pushy about pictures. When he agreed to take me out, he said, my town hates, they're always screenshotting my grinder, calling me gay and shit just because I'm autistic. It was like, damn, that sucks. It's just funny how he framed it in hindsight. Baby, like, they're doing that because you're like racist. Like, you go into places and say the N-word. And okay, like, I think I do want to talk about it, but I'm kind of sick of it, of the like R-Trap's gay argument. I can tell when a dude's fucking gay. I was a fucking gay dude. I know these dudes are not gay. I can clock it. And it's just annoying. Like, people will try to be like, yeah, like, you're a woman, but like, not really. Like, bro, all these dudes are like, they're attracted to femininity. One dude, like, I'd be like, oh, I gotta take my estrogen or whatever. And they're like, that's so hot. They're straight and like attracted to the difference between me and them. Heterosexual, attracted to difference. It's like hyper feminine to them because it's like, I started in the same place that they did. I don't give a. You can call Chud gay. To me, I just call him trade. Back in the day, it's like a man who will receive head femboys tranny on the DL but doesn't reciprocate. But these days, it's like any straight dude, and he's in femboys.
That's not what trade means. Trade has always been a term that describes a Black or brown man who exchanges sexual services. This man might not actually be gay, but he does exchange sexual services with men. That's kind of the irony that people are poking at when they turn to people on RuPaul's Drag Race who are drag queens and say trade, because some of them look masculine out of drag, because they're making the joke that this person who is a drag queen looks like they could be a heterosexual man selling sex to gay men. That's the joke, but it's lost and it's started to mean masculine straight man. Some people will say that trade is polari, but that's not true. And none of you who are wagging your fingers and, talking about death drops in houses are getting that from polari. Some of you guys should look at your queer history and understand the secret way in which queer people used to communicate with each other. I think that's going to become more relevant, but it just means something completely other than that. So anyway, back to the story.
I've seen what happens when men come out as dating trans women. My ex, whenever he posted pictures of us, he lost so many friends. It does suck. I don't think any straight man is fully secure in their sexuality enough to just be like, yeah, I'm a straight dude, and I'm sure there's some dude like that, you know, but if they're woke, they have to be like, I'm queer. I hear all these stories from these bisexual men who are like,
I date women, I date trans women. I tried to f a dude, but my heart's just not in it.
I just couldn't. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's like, because you're not gay. You're trying to take the trans women are men argument and you're trying to make it woke. And that's based. That's why the premise doesn't fit. I have never had a dude me and then he goes fucks dudes. I guess Chud did that. I mean, I don't know. Apparently he sent like nudes to Dwing's site. I have not looked into it. I just know he got pegged by a cis girl. Most of these men, they're attracted to femininity, but Chud's like the kind of dude who took it to like the extreme. Like he was a groiper. They think feminism has ruined females. They all just act like fucking dudes now. Trans women and femboys, they're the only people who want to act feminine. He sent me these texts with his baby mama, who was Latina, months later after a date. She said, go live happily ever after with a dude. And then he said, back in the day, when women were made to be feminine, that's when society was the best and the least gay shit occurred. Every time women get out of hand, the facts go back to the Roman days and dudes who are more femme than their fat girlfriends are. Women are so manly, dudes would rather fuck a femboy than come home to their GF. Bitches who act like dudes will call men gay for fucking femboys who are more feminine than they are.
How dare you not want to come home and f a man with a pussy?
Sorry, babe. I'd rather fuck a girl with a dick than an N-word with a mid-pussy like yours. Cry laughing emoji. My friend made a good point where she's like, yeah, bro, like you really owned your baby mama.
Sorry, that was really funny. You really owned your baby mama. I am gagging at the fact that this trans woman is openly sharing this point. This is the point that I've been trying to make in a lot of these conversations. And it's something that I brought up in the context of that White Lotus monologue. You guys can go see my video that I did about that specifically over on Movies in My Closet, where I speak about this. But there is this very prevalent idea among men who would say that they believe in traditional masculinity, that feminism, basically women gaining rights, has ruined women. And some of these men have turned to transgender women and sometimes femboys, right? And going back to the point that I initially made about this, they're doing it because it's all about gender play, right? These men fetishize femininity and masculinity. And again, to the Brian Noam conversation, because Brian Noam was outed as a crossdresser along with Chud the Builder, right? When they crossdress, what they're trying to do is replicate the image of femininity that they fetishize, right? So, of course, when they crossdress, they're going to lean into misogynistic tropes. I think it's also very important to point out, because Chud the Builder is a white supremacist, that most of these conceptions that we have around gender are white supremacist. They come from this white supremacist image of gender. One of the very first things they did when they came to the Americas was genocide two-spirited people who existed outside of the Western gender binary. They did that because it makes men easier to control. They did that because it makes the populace easier to control. And it's very important to talk about that and point that out, because there is a connection between these things. People say we make everything about race, but we exist in a country that started as a white ethno-state. This country was created for free white peoples, and Black folks were seen as property. Chud the Builder walking up to free Black people and calling them the N-word is him hearkening back to a tradition. It's him trying to cite a history where Black people are meant to be submissive and subservient to white people. That's the intended effect of walking up to a Black person, calling them the N-word, and then chastising them and saying that they're chimping out by having a response to the blatant disrespect. Because the point is, within a culture, Black people aren't supposed to stand up to disrespect from white people. That's the entire point. That's the entire point. They want for Black people to live in a subservient position within society. And a lot of white people, because they understand the power of racism, though they like to pretend they don't, they cling to the N-word and flinging and slinging the N-word because they view it as like a trump card that makes Black people submissive. It's very important to understand all this stuff, because even on the point that I just made about submissive, there's a reason why his baby mom is a woman of color, right? There's a reason. And a lot of these men who are white, who go after women of color, they go after women of color because they do not live up to these white supremacist conceptions of gender. Because ultimately, this is all about an insecurity with that. And these men are often working at a deficit. One of the things that you'll notice about some of Chud the Builder's content is there are times where he will walk up to men that he is very clearly assuming are on his side, older white men who presumably support some of what he's saying. And sometimes these men don't react the way that he expects. There's been a lot of conversation about this, because even some of the people who would agree with a lot of what Chud the Builder is saying haven't come out to support him, because within our culture, Chud the Builder doesn't get to capitalize on white masculinity in the way that he would like to, right? And so a lot of this is all about that. It's all about this feeling of inferiority and insecurity around gender. Again, Black men dominating them and their partner is because of this feeling of sexual inferiority that they are trying to manage through their kink, right? And in these scenarios where they're trying to get their interracial race play off, the person of color, even if they're playing a dominant position, is being controlled by him, right? And it's a way that they get to control this fetish and this anxiety. Anyway, let's get back to her story.
Just say you think it's hot, bro. That's all. It doesn't have to be this whole thing. So I revisited Laverne Cox drama because I was like, I don't want to get canceled. This is way worse than dating a MAGA cop. I'm kind of convinced maybe a white bitch needs to say this. Most of the men I've dated have been conservative. Most of the dudes are not Chud the Builder. They are normies about it. Him being vaguely Republican was not a red flag. There were some things that made me suspicious. He said he was no fap, but I always get in this argument with the one woke chaser I date. He is like, why are you always dating conservatives? I'm not trying to. This is just the men who I attract. A lot of it has to do with these men think about their masculinity as much as like trans women think about like femininity. And they are attracted to that contrast. And so you tend to attract these like patriarchs who are hyper masculine. And Chud is just the Groyper version of that. I mean, and also just like being an alt girl, you attract cops. Being a tranny, you attract Republicans. So we met at a pizza place near my house. When we were walking into the restaurant, he turned to me and said, like he'd almost forgotten.
You're very beautiful, by the way.
It was in this tone, like he was admitting it. I said, thank you. You're hot. And he dismissed it. At the restaurant, I clocked that he was only drinking bottled water. It hit me. Oh, you don't drink fluoride. He mumbled about it being feminizing. And I guess he saw the look I made because he said, like, you can keep drinking it, which I thought that was really funny. After that, I was connecting the dots that, like, I think this dude is a Groyper. That, plus his intensity, worried me enough to be second-guessing my choice to invite him into my house. When we left, the hostess was glaring at me, like staring at me with shock. She has to let me know that she has an opinion about me. I've been there a few times, and I told him that. I said, bitch always gives me the fucking tranny stare. He thought that was funny. He was like, she's a fat bitch. In the moment, it felt bad. I'm just so used to being bullied. I would never do that to someone else. And it's just that people will do it to me, and to have this big dude not stand up for me, but be on my side felt good.
In this story, Chud the Builder is a man who fetishized her, but also took her out in public, right? And she talks a lot about how left-leaning men are very wokely transphobic. And frankly, that's something that I wrote a lot about in my own reactions to Laverne Cox. You can go read the article that I wrote about this on my website, blaqueinthecity.com. But there is this thing that happens where you think that the main people that are going to approach transgender women are going to be people who are on the left, right? But my dating pool has been full of conservative men. And when I lived in Orange County, this was particularly a problem because it meant that I was frequently in a situation where I had to reconcile with the politics of the men that I was dating. And a lot of the men that I was dating were men who honestly didn't treat me interpersonally poorly. I mean, ultimately, these men couldn't pretend to be good for too long. But a lot of times these men were just generally nice in like a basic, I'm going to take you out in public kind of way. And yes, for some of these men, they do sort of enjoy seeing people's reaction to you when you're in public. And for some of these men, that is part of their fetish. But at the same time, a lot of these men will respect transgender women and date them and treat them the way that many of them would like to be treated. That is something that I've experienced from conservative men. When I moved to Los Angeles, I was in situations with men who were attracted to trans women theoretically, or they felt like they, because of their politics, shouldn't reject transgender women, but they weren't attracted to transgender women. Like they weren't really. And that's something that's really hard to be around because you have these people who, especially since many people believe that rejection of transgender people is transphobic, that's a thing that I've rallied against for many, many years. We won't talk about that in this video, but that idea encourages a lot of people who aren't attracted to trans women in reality to present themselves as though they are. And so I've dated left-leaning men who in all reality had discomforts with me being transgender, especially as a trans woman who tends to be read as cis. So a lot of the times I will get asked out by these guys who are left-leaning, and they won't necessarily say, oh, I'm not really into you because you're trans, because they worry about how that feels. And what you will experience sometimes with conservative men in contrast is that some of these men, especially if you're willing to play a certain role, are willing to date you. They are willing to go out and treat you respectfully. They will turn to you and say, hey, I am someone who does indeed desire a relationship with a transgender woman, or at least they'll make you feel that way. I'm a put up or shut up kind of gal, so I require men to actually show up. But sometimes these men aren't really being honest with themselves. And conservative men will often come off as more straightforward, more honest, and far more confident about their attraction to transgender women. I appreciate that she consistently points out that she engaged with Chud the Builder in a lower part in her life, because a lot of times these men capitalize on that. And they'll say things about cis women with the thought that if you hear it, you're going to feel complimented by that. And far too many trans women live with a degree of jealousy around what they think is offered to cis women, because oftentimes this isn't obvious, but a lot of times the guys that come to you and talk shit about cis women, these are not men who like women. These are men who have disdain for women. And yes, that does include you. They also like pick-me's. And what trans women often are, especially when they're in an insecure place in their life, are pick-me's. Trans women will often engage in pick-me-like behavior because they often feel like this is one of their only options. It's a sad thing to acknowledge, but it very much is a thing that a lot of men have been able to bank on. And it is one of the many reasons why some men will pursue relationships with transgender women. I think that Chud is a fascinating case of a man who presents these various things that I've talked about.
But I'm like, he just hates women. He's dating me because he hates women. I was talking earlier about like how woke people will be like, yeah, like you're a woman, but well, the like non-woke thing is like, he likes me because I'm not a woman. Or because he doesn't see me as a woman. He thinks I don't have these hang-ups. He thinks that all males keep their resentment towards females. And I'm just like, I've never really had that. Like, I've always loved women. I've always been drawn to women because I'm a fucking girl. I took the selfies of us in the parking lot when he was asking me, are we going to your house? I was joking, brushing him off. I kept telling him, you kind of got that Ted Bundy stare. He said, come on. I've decided I couldn't get out of it now, and he was too hot. It's kind of sad that I gave up my morals. We ended up in my living room. I must have been showing him something because he was sitting in a chair near my computer. I think he grabbed my ass when I was walking by. I ended up straddled in his lap, and we started making out. It was hot. My eyes were closed as I felt his arms tighten around me. Instinctively, I clung to him while he stood up. He picked me up so effortlessly I felt weightless. He carried me over to the couch and laid me down. He was on top of me then, as we continued kissing, only stopping after he unbuttoned my pants. He wanted to watch as he took them off and commented,
"You're wearing sexy shit."
when he saw the vinyl thong I was wearing. Then he went for it. He went down on me until his clothes were off, and he gestured for me to reciprocate. That first round didn't last very long. We finished. He kissed me goodbye. The rest of the year, I dodged his texts and messages, but I didn't feel safe or confident enough to block him. I wanted to stay on good terms from a distance. I didn't want him to feel rejected. He had my address, and I didn't want him to think the only way to reach me was to show up. When I first started making this, I was worried that his fans would dox me. The more I saw about him, the more I realized he's not really a part of anything. He's a lolcow, a rare bipartisan one at that. Even Nick Fuentes denounced him. It's kind of crazy he scared me off with a dude who called him a retard hurting the Groyper movement. Even this video is adding to the pile of chud humiliation content. He's not inspiring the right into a race war. He's Lily Tino for Groypers. Do I need to explain that? Okay, trans people are the biggest Lily Tino haters because they're like, you make us fucking look bad. We don't need another Dylan Mulvaney. Stop this before you make us more of a laughingstock and you're ugly or whatever. And it seems to me like chud is that for Groypers because they're like, look, you're just making everything worse for us. This is not gonna solve this problem. Nick Fuentes isn't stupid. Like, he knows that you gotta change the system or whatever. You can't just individually go around saying slurs. I don't know what the future behind bars holds for chud, but it's downhill whatever it is, because it can always get worse. And that's the video. Let me know if y'all fucked chud. Pretty sure every fucking tranny in this town fucked that dude. Probably every twink too.
Okay, and that is the video. I do appreciate Baby Jane for coming out and talking about this and acknowledging that he is not really as celebrated as people may assume that he is amongst white supremacists. I do agree with her that he is more of a lolcow because ultimately these guys that support white supremacy, they know that they can't do shit like that. Like, ultimately, yeah, these guys do want to be like Chud the Builder. They want the ability to be able to walk up and say the N-word to people. But they know that people like that make it harder for them to reach their goals. They know that the way that they reach their goals is not by being loudly racist, but by denying the existence of racism while moving silently to reinforce the system of it. And so that is the thing that I think gives some people a degree of ease in this conversation. But ultimately, I do want to acknowledge that Chud the Builder is a useful idiot. And a lot of people who are white supremacists are using this opportunity to come out and condemn the sort of trashy representation of racism because they know that it makes them look bad. So on that note, I will acknowledge that I was wrong about Chud the Builder not being into trans women. It turns out that I was very much wrong about that. If you guys want to go and watch the video that I did about Chud the Builder, you guys can click on that video. It will be in the description box below. This video rounds out my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment box below, so please feel free to leave your true tea in the comment box. Also, don't forget to check out my store at katblaque.store. That's where you can find all of my merchandise, and we will be releasing some new stuff very soon for the summer that I'm very, very excited about. So keep your eyes peeled on my website. Check out blackeinthecity.com where I upload my writing, and I will likely write something about this. Anyway, on that note, I hope you guys stay hot and introspective, and always remember, never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.